ever feel like, I don't know, like we're just one big event away from everything kind of changing?
Yeah.
With technology feeling so fragile sometimes and all this anxiety about society breaking down. It's a pretty common feeling, I think. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something called Blast-Proof David's Shield. It's this program that claims to offer a really unique way to handle survival and preparedness. So, our mission today is to get into its core approach, really understand it, and see what makes it stand out from, well, everything else out there.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I think, is how David Shields seems to cut through all the noise. There's so much information overload when it comes to preparedness, right? It's not just another checklist of stuff to buy.
Yeah.
It feels like it's aiming to be a whole system,
Yeah.
and it blends different kinds of knowledge, specifically mentioning biblical wisdom and, interestingly, the timeless knowledge of the Amish way of life.
Yeah.
The real insight, maybe, is how it shifts the focus.
Mm.
Less about complex tech, more towards, lasting principles, self-sufficiency, community,
Hmm.
maybe even faith as a foundation. It's definitely a different angle on resilience.
Right, at very different angles. So, Blastproof David's Shield. It's framed as a, quote, faith-driven guide to surviving one of the most pressing threats facing humanity today.
Yeah.
They talk about the collapse of civilization because of an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, the kind of thing that could knock out the grid
Oh,
instantly,
yeah.
or other big systemic breakdowns. And it's created by someone named Henry Morris, described as a seasoned survival expert. So what's really the heart of this philosophy? What's he getting at?
Well, the core philosophy is definitely distinct. It's trying to go beyond just, basic survival tactics. It specifically says it draws on biblical wisdom, practical survival techniques, and the timeless knowledge of the Amish way of life. That's quite a mix. The main goal seems to be protecting your family when, quote, the grid fails and chaos takes over. It even mentions preparing users for what some interpret as an impending beast system foretold in the book of Revelation. But importantly, it emphasizes that it's less about complicated gadgets and more about practical biblical solutions, which could mean, I suppose, anything from learning traditional skills like canning food, maybe fostering really local community ties, a bit like that Amish model you mentioned.
That is a unique combination for sure. Faith, Amish practices, modern survival. And here's where it gets really interesting. It seems pretty broadly applicable. It's not just for EMP scenarios. Their FAQs say it helps you prepare for general disasters too, natural disasters such as hurricanes or earthquakes, things we see more often, right? One customer even said it helped their family through a 9-day blizzard. That's serious. Plus, they stress it's for beginners. You can use it in an urban area and you don't need special tools or a lot of space. How does something rooted in, well, biblical ideas manage to be so versatile across different threats and even different living situations?
That is a great question. And I think the testimonials actually give us some clues there. Someone named Sarah, a verified buyer apparently, said that out of dozens of prepping guides she'd looked at, David Shield was the only one that truly made sense. She really liked the, quote, biblical approach combined with practical, no-nonsense advice. Said it gave her real peace of mind. And then you have Lisa's story, weathering that huge blizzard, 9 days without power. She credited the off-grid heat and food storage tips from the program, said her family didn't just get through it, they stayed calm and well prepared. So it seems like the underlying principles, the practical skills, the planning are maybe universal, even if the initial inspiration comes from a specific faith perspective.
That's a really important point about the broad appeal. Makes sense. And speaking of accessibility, you mentioned the FAQs. They also clarify something interesting. Even though some of the language might sound like it's aimed at men leading families, the program is explicitly not only for men, which, again, opens it up much wider, doesn't it? So when you put all this together, the philosophy, the versatility, the accessibility stuff, what's the core message for listeners trying to figure out preparedness?
I think it means David Shield is trying to position itself as a compelling alternative.
Mm-hmm.
It aims to equip you not just with skills like how to store water or whatever, but with a whole mindset. The goal seems to be to help you thrive in the aftermath with faith, wisdom, and a well-prepared home. What seems to really set it apart is that focus on accessible, practical wisdom instead of just pushing expensive tech. It's offering a strategy for the essentials, securing water, food, making your home a safe haven without you needing to be some kind of expert prepper already or needing acres of land.
Okay, so wrapping this up, Blastproof David's Shield, it looks like a pretty unique package. It's faith-driven, yes, but also really practical in its approach to preparedness. It seems to blend that older, maybe ancient wisdom with very modern anxieties and needs. And it's designed to be useful in lots of different disaster situations, plus accessible whether you're just starting out or even living in a city.
Exactly. And maybe if we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises a question for all of us, doesn't it? In a world that feels increasingly unstable, what does real preparedness even look like when our usual tech fails us? And, how much can ancient wisdom, whether it's biblical or Amish or something else, truly prepare us for distinctly modern challenges?
Yeah.
It leaves you thinking about that balance, I suppose, between self-reliance, maybe faith for some, and the importance of community, especially when things get uncertain. What's the right mix?